Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. My name is Tom Dutta. We have an exciting guest I'm bringing on, SCOTT SHAY. He's in the green room. But before we get started, we're live streaming today across LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. This is the next generation of taping a podcast where you get to peek into the studio. So if you're on, you can chat with us in the chat box. Let me tell you a little bit about SCOTT SHAY. He's a returning Quiet Warrior. Scott was on not long ago telling us about a book he had written and his incredible work that he does. Scott is a leading businessman. He's a thought leader, multiple author, several widely read books, and we're going to talk about a new one today that have about profound issues facing the Jewish community. He's a co-founder and chairman of Signature Bank, and well, that's a well-known bank in New York for private business owners. And so today we'll be talking about his latest book, his third book, Conspiracy U, a case study, and that in itself is intriguing. So welcome to the show, Scott.
Nice to be back, Tom. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's exciting because now when I welcome you back, I could say welcome back, one of our Quiet Warriors, SCOTT SHAY. Scott, it was a pleasure, and I'm just going to ask the audience to go back into the archives of the show and find your first interview if they haven't heard it. I was very inspired by you, by the work you'd done, the impact that a historical event like the Holocaust had on you personally and your family and your life. So now we're back again today, and you're on a new journey. You've written a book called Conspiracy U. I'm intrigued by that. Pulled it up so we can see the actual cover there, Scott.
Sure.
I'm going to full screen Scott, everybody. So SCOTT SHAY's Conspiracy U. All right. So Scott, let's get into that.
It's coming out tomorrow. It's actually being released tomorrow. So this is my kickoff, frankly.
Fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to jump right in because we want to make this book successful. Everybody, authors' work gets known through reviews. So you want to go and pick up the book. Scott will tell us at the end where to get it. And I encourage you to read it. I'm going to make a commitment, Scott, to do a review on posting on Amazon for you for that book. So on the heels of the other book, was there any link, or tell us, why did you write this book?
Well, that's a great question, because actually it wasn't a book I was anticipating writing. I had finished In Good Faith, which we discussed. It was a 5-year writing effort for me. And I was really more focused on writing some articles, doing some business writing, which I've been doing, all sorts of issues relating to competition, LIBOR, finance, banking, cryptocurrency. So that was my focus. And then I started writing what was going to be a 2,500 word essay related to lessons I learned from my father. And as you remember from the last show, my father was liberated. It was for the anniversary of his 75th, the 75th anniversary of his liberation from Dachau, when he was under 70 pounds. And so I started writing this article. And what happened was there was a professor at Northwestern by the name of Arthur Butts who had written something called, a terrible book called The Hoax of the 20th Century, where he basically says the Holocaust was all made up. It was a plot by Zionists to bamboozle, I'm using his words, Germany and other countries into allowing Zionists to take over Palestine. And he claimed that at heart he's got nothing against Jews, he's just an anti-Zionist. And the book is filled with conspiracy theories and lies and falsehoods and the like. At the same time, there was another professor at Northwestern, so he was on the far right. At the same time, I started reading about, as I was writing this essay, about another professor who had just made front page news because at the NYU convocation, he had given a speech extolling the BDS, the Boycott, Divest, and Sanction Israel movement, and anti-Zionism, et cetera, et cetera. And this professor, Professor Stephen Thrasher, was on the far left. He's a Marxist, progressive writer, professor, and he carries the position of the Daniel H. Renberg Chair of Social Justice Reporting at Northwestern University. So this struck me that at one end you had people writing about, academics about writing about how Israel was all evil on the right, at the same time on the left. And I climbed through the rabbit hole and I started reading them both in detail. And what shocked me is that some of the things written on the far right and on the far left about Jews sound eerily similar, and both are masquerading these conspiracy theories as scholarship.
Wow. Well, first of all, Scott, thanks for jumping right into the book. I'm just going to read out to the audience something I found written about you in the bio I received. His third book, Conspiracy U, a case study, utilizes this motto as a backdrop to illustrate how his alma mater and academia in general have departed from these standards and ideals, sacrificing academic integrity and trustworthy scholarship in favor of conspiracy theories. Wow. Well, Scott, take us into the book. 2,500 word essay turned into this book. I'm really curious. I'm going to be reading it. Talk about the narrative of the book and a couple of the key narratives in it. Something you want to share with us?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think it's important, and what I try to do is do a dive into what are conspiracy theories, because conspiracy theories are not just harsh or unwarranted or even false criticisms of people or of entities, but they have a long history and they have a structure. And so I go into this in the beginning of the book so that as a background, conspiracy theories always assume that there's some cabal of secret or actors acting in secret that are conspiring to do harm against others. And whatever evidence is brought against that, the conspiracy theory just expands. So conspiracy theories are not falsifiable. For example, Alex Jones, his conspiracy theory, there was no Sandy Hook massacre. That was a conspiracy theory that just kept expanding, taking, like all conspiracy theories, some small anomalies and exploding them into this secret conspiracy. So Arthur Butts, for example, notes a few minor discrepancies with some demographic data from Europe, and he expands that into the Jews created the Holocaust, manufactured it, created it, used it, et cetera, et cetera. Remarkable. Alex Jones also does that. QAnon does the same thing. So these theories never become falsifiable. Once you bring one thing up that explains why the conspiracy theory is just bogus, well, it's just an indication that the secret cabal of people are so good at covering up that it's not really relevant. And the thing that's amazing about conspiracy theories is they almost always have a political motivation. There are really a few exceptions, like Paul is dead or Elvis is alive and in the building. Very, very few. And the thing that the two leading scholars of conspiracy theories, Jevon Byford and Qasim Qassam, both are sort of amazed that so many conspiracy theories involve Jews. And that's been historical. And unfortunately, it's true today on the right and the left. And I just want to say one more thing that the book demonstrates is that the conspiracy theories on the right and the left are direct descendants on the right of neo-Nazi conspiracy theories, sometimes coming almost straight out of what Mein Kampf, what Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf. Amazing that these are still being trafficked today, or from Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was itself a plagiarism. A third of the book is a plagiarism of a French novel. It's not even, and yet it became accepted, even though it was immediately debunked as a total hoax and a plagiar and a partial plagiary. Just amazing. And on the far left, so many folks are trafficking in debunked Soviet conspiracy theories about Israel that since the fall of the Soviet Union, it's been made plain that these were just made up to discredit Israel and were part of a propaganda campaign. But no matter, they are being adopted. And here's the sad part. There are books being printed by Duke University Press, Stanford University Press, well accepted academic institutions, and people are being granted tenure over just made up stuff that it's hard to believe that this qualifies as scholar. It doesn't qualify as scholarship. It's hard to believe that this passes medal anywhere as scholarship.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. This is fascinating. And by the way, everybody, we're live streaming with Scott Shay. He's written a book, Conspiracy U. This is his third book. And you can go into the chat if you're on social media and make comments, interact with us. I can put any comments on the screen. But Scott, I want to just, the thought that came to my mind is such a big topic here is how academia can actually subscribe to this stuff. And let's talk about the why for a minute. Maybe you can bring us back to the last time we talked about the book, the first book, the other book you wrote,
In Good Faith.
And I remember in that I asked you questions about the impact on you that had. When you're reading these articles, how does it make you feel personally? And then why? What's the why behind? What do you want people to think, feel, and do with this particular book?
Well, it's very hurtful because to have it said that it's a figment of everyone's imagination, that my grandfather, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins were all murdered for self-serving reasons, is so ridiculous that it's painful. It's painful to read that Arthur Butts thinks that Jews were so good at creating this secret conspiracy that they convinced unwitting Germans, good Germans, to confess to crimes against humanity, to confess to killing millions of people, to confess to, and by the way, this included bystanders, it included it included perpetrators, it included everybody. And this was just all the Jews have some cabal, and they made everybody believe this. And on the far left, that somehow the source of all evil in the world stems from Zionists, stems from Israel. They've somehow influenced police forces to commit crimes and oppress people of color, that somehow climate change is due to the Jews, that somehow Jews are doing organ mining. I mean, the stuff that is written is repugnant.
Yes,
It's hard. It's literally, it is literally painful to read.
Well, thank you for being vulnerable, Scott. I understand, and I'm sure there's many people who watch this who have had family connections to the Holocaust and lost loved ones who will be feeling the pain. You know, we just, I'm not sure if you're aware, but in Canada, we just had our National Truth and Reconciliation Day. I don't know if you know about our national disgrace with the Indigenous people of trying to create genocide and really remove them from the planet. It was covered up. It's now coming to light, the extent of that. From many, many years ago. And what I'm trying to get at is each time we hear a story again of something painful from the past, people just relive that. So I was blown away when you said about academia. Why are universities at that level? Why are they accepting this and publishing these articles? And tell us more about the book. What are you trying to do and get us to think, feel, and do in that book?
Well, so the whole Jewish and Zionist experience has been mischaracterized in academia, but it's been mischaracterized in a way, and I show examples of this, where unless you salute to what's being said as an academic, you're marginalized. I mean, I use an example of Northwestern's anthropology department. It would be impossible for anybody who was Zionist or just thought Israel should exist to really be accepted there. And the thing that I was starting to talk about before is that all conspiracy theories just about are politically motivated. And the political motivation of these conspiracy theories is to rid the world right now of Israel or of Jews. I mean, there was conspiracy theories about Jews poisoning wells during the plague. There were conspiracy theories about Jews sacrificing Christians and using their bloods to bake matzah. Never has one of these conspiracy theories ever been verified. There are conspiracy theories that was endorsed by 300 university organizations in California that somehow Israel is behind or complicit in the George Floyd murder. Now, what was the proof? In 2012, the Minneapolis Police Department, a few members, participated in a symposium organized by the Israel Consulate in Chicago on policing. And somehow, even though 3 out of 4 participants weren't even on the Minneapolis police force, and even though there's no evidence that the primary perpetrator was involved or even attended, somehow just a mere exposure to Israel converted an otherwise nice Minnesota police office, Minnesota nice, to rabid haters. And 300 university organizations in California endorse this.
Scott, I just have to jump in because you got me excited. And everybody, if to get me excited, it means it's a deep issue I'm hearing from Scott. But I've friends in the medical community, and scientists have to have peer-reviewed studies reviewed by their peers. I mean, it's a high bar to get something published. Yep. That's crazy that these type of conspiracy theories are being published. The book title, hold it up again. I'm going to full screen you, everybody. The book comes out tomorrow. Conspiracy U. I love the cover. SCOTT Shay. It says a case study. Tell us, what does that mean? A case study.
Well, I take a case study, Northwestern University, which is my alma mater. And it really pained me to do that. I could have used a case study of other universities, but Northwestern is not known as a hotbed of radical anti-Zionism. It's just sort of another university. It's a highly ranked university. You would think it has high academic standards. And the answer is yes, primarily except, there are other exceptions too, primarily except when it comes to Israel or when it comes to Jews, where academic standards are to some degree thrown out the window unless you follow the party line. And I show one professor at Northwestern who compares Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, to Nelson Mandela or to Mahatma Gandhi. And he's currently a professor, and talks about, how he'll be fairly judged as a liberator. Well, Hassan Nasrallah thinks that every Jew on the planet, makes no bones about it, should be exterminated, eliminated. He doesn't limit it to Israel. Now, if you had another professor saying that any group of people should be exterminated from the earth, they wouldn't continue to get tenure, get promoted, have tremendous responsibilities. But when it comes to the Jews, it's okay.
Yeah,
you can be for their extermination, and you can still not be criticized. It's okay. It's fine. And I have I cite another professor at Northwestern who wrote a book where the only way to understand it is to assume that Jews, Zionists, are somehow evil. And terms like campus rabbis are done in quotes, as though somehow there's a signal that a campus rabbi, it's sort of unfortunately on the far right when I've written, my name is sometimes, and other people's names who are Jewish, are behind 3 parens to indicate that person is Jewish. So the quotes are on the far left and the parens are on the far right, but they're getting to the same exact thing. It's hugely disturbing that you have to, and in that book, which claims that somehow Jews, Zionists are manipulating anthropology departments' tenure decisions, there is no proof. There's lots of interviews of people who feel that way, think that, believe that, but absolutely no proof. And even the authors admit there's no proof. But again, it's a conspiracy theory, so it can't be falsified. And the two proof texts they bring, one of an anthropologist who's rejected for tenure, well, there's no comparison of whether that anthropologist's scholarship is good, bad, or indifferent. How many other anthropologists were denied for tenure that same period of time? Where, when? Nothing. The assumption is it must be because of the Zionists. Again, that would be acceptable in no other venue, no other place, nowhere else in academia. And yet,
Well,
it's fine here.
yeah, it blows my mind. Everybody, we're talking to Scott Shay, the author of the new book, Conspiracy U, a case study, which comes out tomorrow. You want to get that book and give it a rate and give it a read. Scott, I admire your courage for doing this book. I'm curious what the response, you think the response is going to be, or what's been happening so far with those who are aware of the book.
Well, so here's the thing. There's a small menu anytime you come out against this sort of these sort of groups. There's a small menu of responses, and it doesn't matter what you write, what you say. I'll be called a baby killing, apartheid enabler, genocidal, homophobic, racist, sexist. I don't know. You keep going, person, and it goes on and on and on and on. And the idea is it's sort of a bullying tactic, and it's with huge fuselage. I mean, people who don't agree with the BDS narrative or engage with it are just excoriated as though they're the worst of the worst of the worst people, without any nuance, without any connection to anything else in the rest of their lives. That by themselves means that they should be excluded from all society.
It's incredible. What's your call to action in the book? What I think I said, think, feel, and do. What do you want people to do once they've read this book, Scott?
Well, first of all, I give 3 suggestions about what should happen in academia. One is, and you touched on it, which is a return to academic standards. These problems are primarily in the humanities and social sciences. So unlike the hard scientists, something doesn't actually need to work. It just needs to sound good. And so that's why something like 60-70% of psychology experiments aren't replicatable. In the humanities, you can just come up with something that sounds really good. So I want to return to what one of the founders of Northwestern cited, which is be sure you're right and then move forward. So, for example, I go show in the book how the entire history of the Jews has been not reimagined. It's been made into something it's not. How this notion that the Jews parachuted in from Europe and somehow took over Israel is an accepted fact, even though Jews have been in Israel from, according to archaeologists, somewhere around 3,000 years, and about 1,000 BC. There's the Merpata stele, and we're probably a majority in the land of Israel until at least 400 and probably 700 after the Common Era, and are the indigenous people. Well before anyone else well before the Arabs who came from Arabia came after the Muslim conquest. But that doesn't matter. Jews somehow were never there. They were European, and they need to go back to Europe. And not only that, but Jews from the river to the sea need to be expelled or exterminated. And this is okay. I mean, that's the thing that's amazing to me, is that, and this may be why I sound a little bit outraged, is because there's really no outrage over folks saying Jews should be expelled or exterminated. I mean, Hamas says it openly, but BDS has no problem partnering with them.
Yeah, your last comment about there's no outrage, I sometimes think about that, Scott. You sent me on a journey in my head about other issues that I wonder 10, 20 years from now, the next generations, when they're looking back at history, when this book has made an impact. I'd like to know what the millennials and the Gen Xers and those who are coming up who never got to see their grandparents or or people who are lost, in the Holocaust, what their opinion is of conspiracy theories. I got to say, man, I think I call you a trailblazer, but everybody, a leader in society who steps out and speaks on a cause like this is a trailblazer. And with it, there's a saying, the first one always gets bloody. And you're prepared to do that. This is your third book. So, Scott, hold it up again and tell us where people can get a hold of that book.
So people can get a hold of this on Amazon at Barnes & Noble, barnesandnoble.com. Wherever quality books are sold, it's available. They can find out more about it if they go to scottshay.com. You can order it through some links there. But I also really want to say thank you to Tom, because your motto, purpose, action, life, is really something that I take to heart. I mean, I think that we need to all live a purpose-filled life. We don't want to just sort of start and end. And I think I said it the last time on your show, is that the most important 2 days in anyone's life are the day they're born, because then they have the potential. But just as important is the day that they find out why they're here on this planet. And that's not so easy. And sometimes people go through their whole lives without figuring out what they're here to do. And it could be a small thing, could be a big thing, we don't know. But without that purpose, we're just sort of sleepwalking.
Yeah, thank you, Scott.
Thank
Scott,
you, Tom.
You're welcome. Thank you for reminding us of that. Everybody, that's a teaching moment on this show, the beginning and point of your life and finding why you're here. Here's the thing, Scott, I've learned this, that for some, there are others like you out there who've had similar experiences, losses. They're angry, they're frustrated, but they won't step into the unknown and do something with that to make an impact. So as we go to wrap up here, I want to honor you with 4 leadership words. We did this last time. I get to do it again. They're not scripted. Everybody, Scott Shay, the author of the book Conspiracy U, a case study. Scott's also the chairman of a well-known bank, Signature Bank in New York. The first one is integrity, Scott. There's no question about it, to put yourself out there and have integrity to write this book. Number 2, trailblazer. I've already said it. First one through the wall gets bloody, according to the movie Moneyball. Well, I can imagine on your third book that you're ready for more of that if it happens. Third is leadership, taking a leadership role. I know, especially in the Jewish community and the work that you're doing, blesses your tribe. And the fourth one is, I'll finish up with this word that sometimes in leadership people don't accept it. It's love. The fact that you're doing this, and if people really read your the book in good faith and understand the sacrifice that your family made as a result of some of these world events, it comes out of you when you're speaking. You say you might be enraged. Well, dude, being enraged, the point of finding love is to be enraged, and you do it because you love other people. So congratulations. On this, we'll be putting a link to the book and a recommendation in the show notes for people to get it and give you a review. And Scott, I'm going to...
Thank you.
There it is. I'm going to challenge you that after I've read it and done your review, maybe spare a few minutes and come back again. And so we can talk a little bit more about this book.
Well, Tom, you're a special guy, and your show is a special show. It's really one that's meaningful to me, and you go deep, quick, and I really appreciate that.
All right. Appreciate you so much, Scott. Everybody, find that true passion like you hear from Scott there. Find that purpose, that he talks about, the purpose of your life, and live the life that you deserve and desire. Thank you, Scott. All right, we're going to end the broadcast. Stand by.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca